Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Board of Library Trustees regular meeting, Wilmette Public Library. Today is Tuesday, March 19th, and it's 6:30. Trustee DiLorenzo, may we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Trustee Cox?
Here.
Trustee DiLorenzo here. Trustee Nealon? Here. Trustee O'Keefe is not present. Trustee Senate is not present. Trustee Summer?
Here.
Trustee Fishman?
Here. Thank you. And we'll go on to a review of our minutes from our last meeting, February 20th, 2024, our regular board meeting minutes. And are there any corrections or additions? Right, thank you. Seeing none, may we have a motion to approve, please?
I move approval of the February 20th, 2024 regular board meeting minutes as presented.
Thank you. And is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. We have our motion from Trustee Summer and seconded by Trustee Nealon. Trustee DiLorenzo, may we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Trustee Cox?
Yes.
Trustee DiLorenzo, yes. Trustee Nealon?
Yes.
Trustee O'Keefe is not present. Trustee Senate not present. Trustee Summer?
Yes.
Trustee Fishman?
Yes, thank you. The motion to pass the regular board meeting minutes from February 20th have been approved. Thank you. Public comment. Anyone who has signed in, we will take any comments. Our only guest today is from the League of Women Voters. Thank you for being here tonight. All right, moving on. We have no presentations, so we'll move right on to the Treasurer's Report. Trustee Summer.
Yep. Good evening.
Thank you.
If you'll notice in the financials, in February, we started receiving our property tax revenue. There was only one check from the Special Reserve Fund in the amount of $15,180 to Interactive Building Solutions, and this was our final payment for the BAS system. We approved the contract in the amount of $151,800, and that was the total amount of our payments. There'll be one more check from the Special Reserve Fund to Enberg for this project. As of today, or as of end February, the Enberg fees were about $20,000, and those were in addition to the approved amount. But one thing to note is when this project was proposed and then approved in November, the fees were included in an email from Director Austin, and he indicated that they're appropriate and they're also, and I agree, an efficient resource delivering this information because they're very familiar with our system and our technology. 3 new CDs and 1 Treasury bill were invested in February at rates between 4 and 4.5% for the general fund, and 2 Special Reserve Fund CDs will be reinvested in March. Just as a general comment, on the profit and loss statement, all classes, it looks like interest income is 242% of the budget, but that's just because we only budget for the general fund interest only. And we will consider next year whether we actually do that, just to make it a little more readable and appropriate. Also along the same lines, as a reminder, there's no budget numbers for the 9,000 accounts at the bottom of the page. Again, we'll determine if that's something we want to do going forward. Couple comments. These are from Mary Ann, who's not here. There was a check for $4,518.24 to Hosted Services, which is an annual subscription to Easy Proxy, which is a service from OCLC that allows the library to create a proxy server to provision remote access to our premium subscription databases that would otherwise only be available inside the library. So it means people can access these services outside the library from home. And also there was a $2,595 check to professional services for professional services to the Village of Wilmette, and this is the library's portion of the Shared Sustainability Coordinator. And that is all that I have. Did anybody have any questions on items, income, checks? And that is okay. Is there a motion for approval of the bills and salaries?
I move approval of the bills and salaries check detail for February 2024 as presented.
And is there a second?
I second.
Wonderful. May we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Trustee Cox?
Yes.
Trustee DiLorenzo, yes. Trustee Nealon?
Yes.
Trustee O'Keefe is not present. Trustee Senate not present. Trustee Summer?
Yes.
Trustee Fishman?
Yes. So we have moved and approved the bills and salaries check detail for February 2024 as presented. Thank you. We do not have any discussion items, and so neither this month do we have any action items. So we are moving right along. Excellent. And we're right already at the director's report, 6:36. Thank you. Take it away.
All right.
This is first ever.
Anyone have any questions for my report? No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. All right.
We're done.
This could be the speediest meeting ever, but it's not going to be because you've given me the microphone. Okay. All right. So a couple things I'll say to start. Yes, we have no discussion and action items this evening, but we've got a lot of work in motion behind the scenes going on with the board right now. Earlier today, the Space Needs Assessment officially kicked off with a meeting with the leadership team, most of the leadership team, the stakeholders from the staff, as well as Trustees Fishman and O'Keefe. Along with our partner architects, Joe Huberty and Sean Kelly from Ingberg Anderson. That work is the work that we approved back in January to do the space needs assessment for the library, and Joe presented a very comprehensive document that incorporated a lot of data that I provided to him, statistical information from our strategic plan summary. He incorporated the strategic plan into this document. He's done, as we mentioned earlier, he's done a lot of work with this building previously. He's got a lot of background information that he's provided in that document that he shared with us, and began collecting feedback from staff about what we think some of our opportunities for improvement are with this facility, what we think some of the challenges and pain points that we have, and has invited us to continue to evaluate that information and provide a space for us to create that feedback and to begin thinking about who our stakeholders are that we want to engage in this process, what kind of questions we want to ask of those folks, so on and so forth. That's the first phase of this process, is to get our core group together to discuss the scope and to basically begin the heavy thinking about what we're going to do and how we're going to engage. He also presented a calendar and outline for what this process is going to look like over the course of the next year, and it appears that we're going to be well underway with patron and partner engagement here this spring. And we're going to officially kick off the project with the entire staff in this room here on Staff Development Day, Friday, April 19th, when the library will be closed for us to focus on staff development. So that's one of the big processes that is underway right now. Another big project that is underway and that we're going to get into next week with the Policy Committee is the development and refinement of several of our policies. There have been a number of codes and statutes that have been updated over the course of the last couple of years that need updating in our official documentation, and the Policy Committee is about to undertake the review of those documents. The three big ones that we're going to be looking at this time around include the Human Resources Policy, which will come before this board for the first time in my tenure. We're operating off of an employee handbook that has had its last revision in 2017. A lot of that content is still very much valid. However, there have been a number of statutes that have been passed in that time since that affect our human resources, and we're incorporating those and codifying them in an official policy document for the first time. So that's been a big undertaking, and we worked on that with our attorney recently, and we'll be previewing that with our leadership team this Thursday. Two other policies that we'll be discussing that are entirely new to the library include one that we discussed at last month's meeting, which is our policy on security cameras. When we were talking about the standards for public library documentation, that was one of the things that was identified in there that we still needed to accomplish. So our attorney has helped us with that process and has actually just gotten back to me right before this meeting this evening with his review of our draft policy. So I can officially compile all that information and start preparing the posting for the Policy Committee meeting, which I think I said is next week. We did decide, I believe, that we are going to be meeting on Tuesday, March 26th at 3 p.m. in the small meeting room. And we'll be posting that information on the website shortly with our agenda, and I'll be forwarding the documentation to you. The other new policy that will be for discussion at that meeting is our sustainability policy, which we have created in coordination with our sustainability coordinator. And that also passed attorney review. There are a few other policies that require update due to some statutory updates as well. They're minor details. One of them has to do with the rules of procedure for our public meetings. There is another reason that the state has added for remote participation for trustees at a meeting. So a family emergency is the fourth item that we can now add for a reason that we are not able to physically attend.
great.
So we need to update our documentation for that and our bylaws. So those are two documents that will also be up for review.
Have they defined family emergency?
No.
Could be subject to
Good
interpretation.
question.
So we
Right.
can, we can,
There's-
we can explore that.
Yes.
Yeah. So I will have a few updates. I'll provide you with an orientation to that as well, a cover sheet to all those policies, and highlight what those changes are, and we'll get into it next week. We anticipate that if we find that our discussion is fruitful and that we're able to move forward with this process, that we may be able to advance those policies for review and approval at the April 16th regular meeting. If we decide that it's a little much for us to get through in the course of one meeting, and I will say the human resources policy is about 75 pages, we may decide that we need to have another committee meeting to complete that review, or it may take a little bit more time to go through that process. So we'll see where the group takes it. The other activity that the board is working on this spring is the annual review of the forthcoming fiscal year's operating budget. We typically approve that at the June regular meeting, and we have typically done that following discussion at 2 committee meetings. The committee meetings are typically the first week of May, which the first one is the first week of May, and I believe that the majority of us were available to meet on Friday, May 3rd, but I'm going to confirm this by sending out a doodle poll this week to the board. So when I send that out to you this evening after this meeting, if you could respond to that, I will get that meeting scheduled for us as well. The second meeting, which is where we discuss the personnel side of things and get into the personnel portion of the budget, is typically held in early June. And my initial poll of the team found that there were no dates that worked for the entire committee. It's a hard time for a number of scheduling reasons. So we may need to reevaluate the way that we handle that this year. And Trustee Summer and I have been talking about that. There are a couple strategies that we could employ. Maybe we could do this right before the Memorial Day holiday instead of early June. We could also potentially hold a closed session as part of our regular meeting in May to get into those details following the review of the budget at that meeting and at the prior committee meeting earlier in May. So there's a number of ways that we could approach that process. We'll do a doodle poll and we'll confirm.
Good.
So that is some of the other work that we're working on. But into my report for this month. Okay, so some highlights from my report. Physical circulation was strong again in February. We were up 4% over our 22-23 numbers, and our digital circulation continued its exponential growth trend. As I reported at our previous meetings, we have seen record highs in our use of Overdrive over the course of the last couple months, including a 7% increase over our most recent record high in December. Our door counts are also remarkable and are increasing overall. We're still averaging about 700 users a day, which is a strong rebound from where we were during the pandemic years, though we're still just slightly off the mark from where we were in 2019. The library welcomed 263 new patrons in February, which is really quite remarkable. A good part of those were some new students to the District 39 schools. As you know, when you register to become a student at District 39, you're also able to apply for a library card. Some other highlights from February. I did mention this at last month's meeting, but it deserves mention again. The day of our last meeting on February 20th was the day that we cut over to our new telephone system. That was a Herculean effort by a number of staff. It was a very big deal for us. Migrating that system over from an on-premises system to a cloud-based system with our new vendor, and all of its attendant hardware and software was a big lift. But we did it, and there are a range of improvements that happen for both staff and patrons alike. Staff have largely trained on the system and have set up their new voicemail accounts and preferences, including their new visual voicemail, which a number of folks are really appreciating. And folks have become overall really well familiar with the system in the short time that we've been using it. Feedback from patrons and partners on the other end of the phone have also been rather positive, and a number of folks have commented on how clear the connections are and how good the call qualities are. So we're very happy with our new phone system. On the collection side of things, in preparation for the space needs assessment, our shelving and welcome desk manager, Patsy DeVono, prepared a list of shelf counts for multiple areas across the library. She went around and physically counted the linear feet of shelving that specific collections occupy, which is an incredibly valuable tool for us. That's going to help us to measure the total linear feet of our collections and determine how we can best present them going forward. We're working on a more comprehensive presentations plan for how we're marketing the collections, and this is also going to be helpful for us as we identify where we might be able to move some of our smaller collections incrementally or highlight some of more less used collections or things that are more in demand in better locations. The Library of Things Committee received 3 additional Rokus this past month, and we're going to be adding some additional digital subscription options soon. We also added 2 external DVD players to address patron demand. We added the status of new to our video game collection for the first time in our holdings. Historically, when you add the status of new to an item for the first, like, say, 3 months that we have it in the collection, it prevents users from outside of our consortium to access those materials. It reserves those items for view by our patrons first. Our video games are consistently one of the top 5 materials that circulate at the library in terms of demand, and this makes sure that our patrons have immediate first access to those collections. So kind of fell through the cracks, and we were able to address that now. So it makes it a lot easier to browse. As I mentioned earlier, we continue to see tremendous growth of our Overdrive ebook collections, and usage is up 40% since 2020. Wilmette is the number 6 library in our consortium for digital circulation and number 26 by population served. This is a stat that we talk about a lot. Our community has highly adopted digital use. In fact, it accounts for 1/3 of all of our circulation. Our digital services manager, Lauren Kelly, was appointed to the Overdrive Consortium, the Electronic Content Consortium's executive board in February, and we're proud to have them represent us in the membership. They're clearly really engaged with how to meet user demand here locally, as well as what the trending is in digital collections. So speaking about digital collections, our Canopy usage in February was the highest it's been all fiscal year, with 1,065 plays. We typically average about 900 plays a month. Canopy has a lot of really outstanding art films and documentaries, and we anticipate that folks were taking advantage of that during Oscar season. Lauren, Kathleen, and I are meeting to review our electronic subscription resources to determine which ones we plan to be renewing in the next year. There's a document that Lauren added to our board packet each month that shows the usage of our digital collections and what their trends are, and also has a built-in feature that highlights which collections are underperforming or have a higher cost per use. This is the first time that we're able to use that tool to evaluate the utility of those collections, and there are a couple that are in our crosshairs right now for examination for this coming fiscal year. So we're taking a look at that, and we'll provide you with more information as we get into the drafting of the budget. On the collection maintenance side, TS and facilities withdrew from the catalog and marked withdrawn and packaged 56 boxes of books to be sent to Better World Books as part of our sustainability program. And additionally, we withdrew 12 boxes of AV materials, which were delivered to Books for Cause in Skokie. We'll tell you more about what we're doing with collection maintenance next month, as we're working on a pilot program for another way of discarding our used materials. Moving on, a couple other items. How am I doing on time? Is this okay? Are you good with me riffing? Thanks. This was this past month saw the end of our inaugural iteration of Wilmette Reads, our new seasonal initiative celebrating readers and our shared love of story. And we concluded with 256 members taking part in the reading program and collecting their choice of a library tote or WPL winter beanie. We were really thrilled to see that patron engagement exceeded our past adult and teen winter reading club participation with a 117% increase. Over 350 circulations were directly attributed to the program, mostly from our highlighted title, The Sentence by Louise Erdrich. And many of our patrons enjoyed the fresh approach to the seasonal community reading program. And we noted a marked increase in recreational reading conversations at the service desks as a result. Our book theme supplemental displays received even higher than expected engagement, and new titles needed to be added daily throughout the 2-month duration of the program. Several community members expressed delight at the opportunity to collect WPL-branded novelty pins to show off their participation in the program. And one weekly visitor expressed that she thought that this was one of the best things that we've ever done. Promise me that I'll get to collect more pins next year, she asked. Another proudly amassed at least one of all 12 designs with several repeats and showed off the array on her library tote. And there's a picture of that in the supplemental report that accompanies the report this month. In summary, we feel that the primary objective of experimenting with our traditional winter reading club and community reading models re-sparked engagement, and that it was a resounding success. Indeed different than what we've done in the past, but we still felt that this was a very successful experiment for us. We've learned a lot about the process, and we think that there's ways that we can build upon in the coming year when we work on this program next year. So I really thank the Adult Services team, and especially Kathleen Blair, our Manager of Adult Services, for leading this initiative and boldly proposing something entirely new for us to experiment, and I really feel that it was a strong success. I also want to thank the Friends of the Wilmette Public Library for their continued support of this type of programming and for their trust in us to experiment with something that has been a sacred program for us over the years. So, Wilmette Reads. We also continued our winter reading program as part of the Youth Services program this winter. And we were really happy to see that we saw a 41% increase in engagement amongst our youth this year. 259 children completed winter reading logs this year, and each finisher got to choose a book that they could keep from our prize cart. Again, those prizes were generously donated by the Friends of the Wilmette Public Library. Youth Services presented 61 programs in February that were attended by 2,109 patrons. In addition, patrons enjoyed a story walk at Hibbard Park, several drop-in activities, a Black History Month scavenger hunt, and a voting box and ballots to choose the names of our 2 new mascots, Minty and Marshmallow, who were the highlight of our social media campaign in February. Altogether, Youth Services also led a total of 33 visits to area preschools, K-8 schools, and local organizations. And the total the attendance at those events was nearly 2,000 people. So a lot of engagement in Youth Services and a lot going on in that report from Andrea and her team. Of particular note, I wanted to call out some work that's been going on with Sarah Jo Zaharako, our Youth Services librarian, who's been working on our Let's Learn Together initiative. On February 2nd, our Let's Learn Together Parent Educator series in partnership with the Mackenzie PTA kicked off. And we were talking about big topics in the news and kids. It was a program for adults, and the kids were able to enjoy a story time and craft while adults came to the program. It's a new service model that we're working on, and we intend to continue that this spring as we continue on with the Let's Learn Together series. Sarah Jo is also presenting our Open Books, Open Mind program that helps families engage with meaningful topics through stories, music, and process-based art. And now I'm moving on to digital maker services. Was there any questions about anything in my report so far? Adult or youth services, circulation?
I'll just
Yeah.
ask, what were the main differences between the former reading Everybody Reads in this year?
So this is our first time doing it with this particular format. So the historical One Book Everyone Reads program focused on a single author event. It was focused around one book and an author, culminating in a series of programs that would culminate in the author visiting the library. There are a number of reasons why author visits in the last several years have not physically happened at the library. A lot of that nowadays, post-pandemic, has to do with the publishers aren't sending the authors on book tours the way that they used to. And since they did a lot via Zoom during the pandemic, authors are getting comfortable with doing Zoom meetings. So bringing authors actually into the library now is a little bit more challenging. Costs have risen for that. So that's one of the things that's different. This year, instead of choosing one specific book and one author to highlight, although we did focus primarily on Louise Erdrich's The Sentence, we were focusing on the act of reading and the experience of readers engaging with story. The winter reading program for adults and teens was sparsely populated over the years and has been one of our less successful engagement activities. This year was remarkably different when we combined the themes of what we were trying to accomplish with Wilmette Reads, kind of a reboot of Ober, in concurrence with the Winter Reading Club. I think it was far more successful. Other challenges that we've had is the time of the year. One Book Everyone Reads is typically a spring activity, and we've found that participation in that has been a little bit harder as there's been competing interests at that time of the year. Our fall author engagement program was a little bit stronger. That has seen a little less engagement since our engagement with the Illinois Libraries Presents program, which is essentially doing the same thing that we were doing, but bringing bigger name authors via Zoom. So a number of things have kind of shifted in the publishing industry and the way that authors are engaging with public libraries, and we took this as an opportunity to experiment a little bit and try something new this year. So.
Got it. So
Also, I'd say that FAN has picked up, Family Action
Yeah.
Network has
So
picked up a huge...
we've partnered with FAN officially in this
Right.
last year, so that has given a bigger reach, exactly.
But I have to, may I do a shout out to Kathleen and your entire team for the celebration at the end of Wilmette Reads. It was so creative, and the room was decorated, and wonderful snacks. You outline in your, Director Austin outlines in his report. But it was really joyous, and there was bingo and fortune telling, and it was really creative and a lot of fun. So I want to thank you so much. And staff was really here, and it was a delight. So I hope that it just grows next year. So thank you so much. Thank you.
All right. Okay, I got one more page, and then I'm done with my report. I'll take any other questions you've got. So the other thing that was really big that took place in February on the digital maker services side was we had just launched the studio, and in the first full month of the studio being open, the team had 282 reference interactions in that space and had 7 individual one-on-one sessions. And in response to, the response from patrons has continued to be overwhelmingly positive. The staff have reported that many folks are excited about the transformed space and seem to be inspired by what they can create with the studio's tools and equipment. Lauren mentioned that one patron even hugged the sewing machine. It's true. It's a really inspiring space once you've had a chance to be in there. There's some really great pictures that are in my report, and actually, to kind of tease that, a couple of those are going to make it onto the front page of the next newsletter, which should be in your homes here at the end of the month. But really the big work of the DMS team that took place this past month was a true Herculean effort from staff on that team, the experiential learning and maker team, as well as staff from all around the building, including our facilities staff, who helped set up the building for Maker Fest. I'm not going to steal too much of the thunder about this report because we haven't officially written this report yet because it took place in March. But it happened on March 9th, and that day was extraordinary. A number of you were here. We had 1,400 people in the building that day, which is 2 times the number of people who typically come in the library on a given day. But we know that 700 were here just for the Maker Fest event, which was a smashing success. high rate of engagement all around the building. I'm really looking forward to seeing how we can tell the story in pictures and words. So look forward to more information about that. But the team did an outstanding job. It was really inspiring. I don't know, do any of you want to make any remarks about your experience?
So we brought our friends from out of town who were visiting. I'm like, we got to go. They were so impressed. I mean, and I'm in the little knitting group. They were packed in that. I mean, there was the people working it, Chris and I think it's Nancy, and every kid was engaged in knitting or some sort of a yarn thing. It was hopping every area of the library.
Yes.
It was, Vinay, you were there, yeah, it was,
Yeah, I think what I noticed was there were people here of all ages and abilities, which I think is really impressive, that you were able to create an event that really drew in everybody from 2 to 92, and like I said, of all abilities and interests, so that was fun to see.
it was just so exciting. There was just so much buzz happening. I know parking was tight. I know walking around the building was just festive, almost, I think, giddy. People felt excited. And all ages, to your point, from little ones to some teens to kids upstairs making tables or banging. I mean, it was great. It was really fun. Painting, demonstrations. It was a lot of fun. Yeah. I can't wait till it happens again.
We can. It was great. It was really great. It's a lot of effort. There's a lot of coordination that goes into that, but clearly a success. Yeah.
They did a great job with marketing it too. I mean, there was really, people knew about it. I think that was a big factor in it being so successful.
Yeah, it's true. And I think a number of the organizations that were involved were able to engage their constituents. So
Yeah, I got emails from them.
So we'll have more to share about Maker Fest in next month's report, but obviously a success. I'll close on a couple other successes, mostly from the human resources side. We've had a few vacancies, and we're happy to report that we've filled them. So in youth services, we've hired Hannah Stenbeck, who is going to be our new youth services associate. In circulation, we've made an internal promotion for the ILL coordinator. That's the position that was vacated when Louise Nydorf retired at the end of January. And Amy Young is our new ILL coordinator. Since Amy moved up, we have another vacancy. So the ILL assistant is a current vacancy, and we have an internal opening that closed yesterday for that. And we're going to be engaged in interviews for that position here over the course of the next couple weeks. And hopefully be able to report on that at the April meeting. And then lastly, but certainly not least, I am really thrilled to report that after a year of no finance manager, we have hired our finance manager. Sandra Discalapolo is going to be our new finance manager. She has over 25 years of finance experience spanning multiple industries, and all rooted in fiscal responsibilities, including the full range of accounting that we do here at the library. She was just a pleasure to work with in the interview process, and I really think that you all are going to enjoy working with her just as much as I'm going to enjoy working with her as well. She will begin on Monday, April 15th, so she will be able to attend our board meeting in April, and she will also be here in time to attend Staff Development Day and to get to know all the staff right there at the end of her first week. So we're excited to welcome her aboard. And I just want to take a moment to say it's been a journey, and I really want to thank Marty for everything that she's done to help us out, as well as Mike Boone. Wow, see?
Hey.
It's a lot. It's been a lot.
Been a long,
And obviously our contractors with Sikich have been assistive to us as well through this process, but we're really thrilled to get this back in-house and to have this all done with our team.
I can't wait. Yeah, I bet you more than I think.
So Sikich is going to be helping us with cross-training, and then obviously I'm going to be doing a lot with that too in April. So lots of activity going on. Even though it was a relatively quiet month on a number of fronts, there's clearly a lot of background and other development going on. Is there anything else from my report that you've got any questions on?
I just have a couple comments. I was so pleased to see Jill and all of her outreach that she's doing. I think she's done a great job in her role as senior services, what she's done with Mather and helping, I think it's very impressive. Pass that along.
Thank you.
And I went to the jazz concert last Friday. It was wonderful. It was well attended too, Friday night, which is good. I had one question. On the very last page, there's like a new chart. And I wasn't really sure. Maybe you could
Yeah,
talk
let
about
me
that.
give you a little orientation here. So on the last page
Last
of,
couple pages, yeah.
you're going to see a multicolored chart that is, that kind of looks like this.
Mhm.
This is just a one-time publication that I included in the report. In the very last page, you'll see highlighted in yellow Wilmette Public Library and District 39. This chart is the total circulation for the Electronic Content Consortium, which is the Overdrive Consortium, the Digital Library of Illinois, that I mentioned earlier that Lauren Kelly is now on the executive board of. This is the total circulation statistics for the digital circulation across that entire consortium for the calendar year 23. So what you see there, and clearly you can see our numbers are really strong, but the point that I want to make here too is along with Wilmette Public Library, you see D39 is listed there as well. I just wanted to bring to your attention, if you weren't already aware, that we've got a bit of a partnership when it comes to the Overdrive collection. So D39 has its own Overdrive collection. And there is a tool that links our two catalogs together, our two holdings together. So students in D39 can see all of Wilmette Public Library's holdings when they log into their school, and they're able to access even more collections. Our Maker Services librarian, Janet Peel, selects the youth materials for our Overdrive collection. And so we use this tool called Sora that connects those two catalogs. And you can see that there's a high rate of engagement between the two there. When you look at some of the other libraries that have a school library that's connected to them with that same tool, they just don't have that same level of engagement. So I really applaud the work that D39 has done to promote our collections. And yeah, so clearly the students and their families are engaged with that. And I thought it would be interesting for you to see just what is reported there.
Thank you for pulling that out,
that
right.
was really-
Win-win then.
Yeah.
Yes.
I had a question, Anthony, on the circulation section of the report. This is on page 6. There's like a table with the current and past circulation by fiscal year.
Yes.
And pre-pandemic, the circulation numbers were trending down, and we are trending back up. And I'm curious if you expect that we will get back to pre-pandemic levels. Is that what you anticipate? And then also I was curious, are our numbers similar to other libraries? The just the kind of the dip pre-pandemic, was that sort of a universal metric, or was that something unique to Wilmette?
These are great questions. I like this one. Thank you. So there's a number of things that I can say about this. There are so many factors that go into this. So the comparative measures, I think I would say locally there's a few things that we need to look at. Our collections on this chart, so this is really the time, these are just the years that Anthony's been here. So I can't really speak to the before times. But what I can say is that we did the RFID project in 2021. That's when we tagged the entire collections. And I can say that ahead of that process, we went through and we did a comprehensive weed of the collections. We had not done that deep dive of the less used or grubby parts of the collection previously. I think we were over capacity. And one of the things that we discuss industry-wide, and we talked about this during the development of our collection management policy last year, is that if there are too many things on the shelf, patrons can't find the good stuff, which is why we kind of use the term weeding when we refer to getting, the weeds out of the garden. The flowers shine a little bit more when there are fewer things to have to root through on the shelves. So I do think that some of the statistical numbers in showing the downward trend in physical circulation was due in part to the fact that we had an overabundance of materials, and it kind of clouded out some of the good stuff. It's an industry-wide trend that when you weed collections, they circulate better. We're working on a merchandising program, and you've seen that down here in the lower level in the last year, where we've removed a shelf in the middle of the stacks, and we've been facing out just 3 titles on those shelves. At any given point when you walk through the library on a given day, you're going to see a couple of those things are empty. They found their reader. We go through, we put another book on the shelf, and then they start going off again. Those are things that otherwise, if they were just spine out, they wouldn't circulate. So we're finding new ways to attract readers, and I think that that's part of this. I also think part of the story is the digital circulation, really. Yeah. It's accounting for 1/3 of our circulation now. That's a trend. I said earlier, it's up 40% over 2020. I think that our readership, our circulation overall is growing. But engagement with our readers is up markedly. And we're seeing an adoption and migration to digital content far greater in recent times. As we start analyzing our spaces around the library as part of the space needs assessment, we're going to need to think a little bit more about trending as we move forward. Are we a warehouse for books? It was something that Joe said back in January when he came here, and that's, allocation of space in our libraries cannot always just be for our physical materials. Patrons have other expectations of the library. This could be what physical circulation is for Wilmette Library. This could be the right metric for us. We might be able to move this needle a little bit more and bring it up. We may be able to expand some collections. We may be able to weed a little bit more and see, these collections get highlighted more. I anticipate from the trending that I've seen that digital circulation is only going to continue to rise. I don't think that there's a tipping point where it's going to replace physical circulation. I'm on record saying that, I guess. But I do feel that digital circulation is still very popular, but we also know from recent trends and studies with the Pew study and other research that's been done lately, younger audiences prefer paper. They prefer to read print. This is what we're seeing with Gen Z and Gen A. They really prefer to hold physical materials. They want to disconnect from their devices because so much of their life is digital. So I think that, and I also believe that there are studies that suggest that we retain more information when we read in print format than we do digitally. Yes, there are other mechanisms to take notes digitally and whatnot, but yada, yada. So, and I think our educators can speak to that as well, and we're certainly working in partnership with them. This is a very roundabout way of saying, I think there are a number of factors that relate to the circulation. Yes, this is industry trend. I do feel that this is seeing the dip. A lot of agencies have not recovered the way that we have post-pandemic. And there are so many variables, so many factors. Some people are just not going to come back into libraries again. They don't want to be out in public, and they hadn't thought about that before. Some people have experienced conveniences as a result of libraries making adaptations in the pandemic. They don't have to physically come inside the building. They may not want to check out physical materials anymore. There are so many differences that have happened in the last couple of years that it might be hard for us to pinpoint the specifics. But the trending and looking beneath the surface at deeper elements of these trends, I think, is where we need to drive our research. This library is becoming more data-driven. We're finding new ways to analyze our statistics. I think that the placement of collections is a big part of the driving factor for circulation. We had to move a lot of collections around during the pandemic. So some of these collections that may or may not be doing well right now could be due in part to the fact of where they're located in the building. Another thing for us to study as part of the space needs assessment. So I don't know. This is my very roundabout way of saying I think the circulation is really strong. I think it's rebounding nicely. I don't know that we're going to get back to those 60,000 circ days that we had there, maybe because a lot of those folks have gone to digital. But I think it remains to be seen. And I think the ways that we adapt in promoting the collections with the space needs assessment will truly prove, how we can be responsive in providing the collections that the community wants the most.
Yeah, I'm curious to see where digital may level off. As you said, many readers still prefer the paper books.
I will be better prepared to respond to questions like that as we dig into the data a little bit more here, and we intend to do a lot more of that here this fiscal year.
Just on that a little bit, great question. Thank you, Maria. Can we look to the, say, ALA or any organizations that look national trends and world trends? You know, are they giving us guidance, or does that come out when you go to conferences and you see more of the scope of things?
Yes, I do. Yeah, in the purple folder over there, there is a report, and I'll share this with you digitally as well. There's a report in there on digital usage, which I think is really fascinating and something we're definitely want to consider come budget time. So there's that, and that was published by the American Library Association just this spring. There are the Public Library Data Service, PLDS, publishes an annual report that we refer to regularly. We've got our local IPLAR statistics, and Joe is incorporating those and is going to do some comparative analysis for us there too. We do have several staff who are attending the Public Library Conference here in early April in Columbus, and we're going to hear from them and hear what they find out. And I will be attending ALA in San Diego this summer too, and I'll bring back more information from the national conference too. So yeah, I think we'll learn a little bit more here soon about the trending.
Great. Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Very comprehensive. Moving on to our committee reports, ILA and Rails. Trustee Nealon?
I don't have anything other. I don't have anything right now. You may know more about the Anthony, the trustee education portal that ILA now is offering.
Yeah, so I did send you all an email last week with a link to the trustee forum from ILA. There's a number of programs that they're offering this spring. Just would bring your attention to that. There are some learning opportunities that are available there.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Good. And you're still in the hot seat. The Intergovernmental Cooperation Committee, any
Yes, there is
update?
more news on that.
Very good. Thank you.
Our executive staff from the village, which would be our director and his compatriots, proposed a village-wide marketing plan to create awareness of the social services and mental health resources, excuse me, that we already have in the village. And as you know, Tracy and I put together a nice big document listing all of those services, which we provided to the members of the committee. And we also sent the brochure, the library brochure, that is always available, that's been available for some years now, which is updated regularly. And there is, I think, an understanding that basically Wilmette and surrounding communities have the Wizard of Oz's ruby slippers. Like, it's been there all the time. The purpose that we are looking at is creating more awareness of the services that are already available. So, executive staff proposed a marketing plan to create awareness of the services, and it would be led by an outside marketing firm, a director, and would involve input from communication staff on all of the village entities for coordination, for execution, and it would be supported by and advised by a group of mental health and social service providers. And these providers have been partnering with the committee for some time now, over the past year, and coming to meetings, and they know what the goals are, they know what they need. They shared with us what they need and where their pain points were and where their successes are, and who is using them and who was not. And so they're just, and they wanted to meet anyway and keep in touch professionally, so this is like a good opportunity for that. And the marketing effort will take place over the next year, so it's not going to be done overnight. Probably in about 3 to 6 months, the communication staff and will be donating, will be giving some of their time to it. And There is a budget, and Wilmette Library does have a share, but it is under $700 in total. So it's a very small amount. And in terms of the meetings themselves, it was decided that they be biannually. So the next meeting is going to be in 6 months, which I believe is around September. And also that leadership will rotate from year to year. Just in terms of, it's probably shouldn't be seen as just a village trustee effort, but other government bodies would want to participate as well. And so we have Gail Eisenberg from the New Trier Township. She's the supervisor. She's going to be chairing the committee in 2025. And after that, there are other opportunities if we want to step up, you know. And that's about it. It was really a deeply interesting project, if frustrating, because it's so broad and there are so many things that we cannot do. You know, we want to go out and, you know, make everybody aware and get everybody the services they need. But we have some limitations. We also have a lot of strengths. So going forward, the topic won't necessarily be a topic even. It was really pretty much decided to, you know, for the next iteration, to just keep it open and go from there. So that's it. Anybody have any questions?
Yeah. So when you say keep it open, the topic, which was mental health, and keep that open, have that an ongoing, or switch gears?
Switch gears, yeah.
Okay.
Switch gears. But we did have topics. It was sustainability at first last year, and then mental health awareness this year. And, you know, the committee didn't pick anything and say, okay, we should definitely do this or that. You know, it's just something that will be considered going forward.
Okay.
We also may, as we meet every 6 months, talk about projects that people are working on, you know, ways that we might, just an example, we're getting new phones, maybe we talk about a project like that, and someone would be like, oh, we need to get new phones,
Mhm.
and maybe that would be some sort of an intergovernmental example of not necessarily having a specific subject, but a way to share ideas, resources,
Mhm.
you know, what our plans are, and that kind of thing.
Exactly, like a lot of the government bodies have big things going on, and do we really know about them?
Yeah.
And I think that it's a great way to share information. So.
Well, for example, I just got, in my mailbox was the communicator from the village. So on their front page, or the first page that when you open, was a whole list of mental health resources.
Oh, okay.
And so-
New Trier Township did that as well.
And New Trier Township
Yeah,
did
mhm.
that like last
They,
month. Right.
You know, they really stepped up, and, you know, they had that information available all the time, but they, you know, reformatted it and added more. And, yeah.
Good,
Um,
good.
But,
A little more user-friendly, I think,
Mhm,
that
yeah.
the goal was. Good. Any other questions for Trustee Neal? Good. Well, thank you. I
Thanks.
appreciate you. And you and Trustee Summer will continue as being our representatives?
We will. They did suggest that we take turns rolling off, that, didn't they say something like, you would do it for two, like, sort of
right, it'd
staggering?
be one
so
on,
they're
one
not-
off. Like, for instance, I've been on, this is my second year, so I will roll off, and then
Some lucky
whoever
person.
Oh,
else would
okay.
like to join Tracy
Yeah.
would happen.
Just a way that new
Yeah.
faces and new
That's,
ideas.
that's a really good way to do it, I think.
Great. Well, then, well, thank you for your 2-year term here. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
And we'll talk amongst ourselves to see who else might be
Yeah.
interested.
So would you do the fall? You would do the fall one, and then you'd come off? Or have you been on 2 years?
I can't remember when I started it, actually.
We'll work on that.
We can figure that
We
out.
can
We'll
figure
figure
that
it
out.
out,
Okay. Moving on, then, thank you so much to our, let's see, information items. We have our comments that are circulating, and I'll just say that, unfortunately, Trustee O'Keefe could not be here this evening, but she participated in a very informative and a lovely little program that was held last week called Local Women in Government. And it was sponsored by the Women's Club of Wilmette. And their trustee O'Keefe represented the library board, and she did a great job talking about some of our initiatives and the role of her role as an elected official. And Trustee Summer was there, and I was there, as well as then there were representatives on a panel, New Trier Township, New Trier Board of Education, the Park District, District 39, and the Village Board. So it was kind of a rainy, wet morning, but nicely attended at the Women's Club of Wilmette. And we thank Trustee O'Keefe for representing us. And PLA, you mentioned that briefly, that April 3rd through 5th in Columbus, Ohio. So, great. Okay. Any other announcements or any new business? All right. Well, we have adjournment at 7:26. May we have a move to adjourn the meeting at 7:26?
I move that we adjourn this meeting at 7:26.
Excellent. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Great. Meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you to our staff tonight.